Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host this week as Matt took over for me a few weeks ago, I guess at this point, or the one that I listened to live this week with Dale. But this week, really, I want to do a quick PSA before we get rolling. Guys, we're in construction, right? That's everybody listening is in construction. We're doing a lot for our communities, and Kenny actually just reminded me as we got started here, who's going to be our guest today, is look, in your normal communities, you go out to dinner, you do stuff around your community, like make sure to take care of the people that are in and around whatever it is you're doing. Like I've been going more local places, yes, they might be expensive, and especially, so we're recording this March 11th, gas prices are like $5-6, even in like Michigan, where, you're like cheap typically, not like us in California. But in that, like, take care of people, man. Like as we're talking about stuff and things are happening in the world, like take care of your local community. You're in construction, everything that we do is local, your guys are local. Take care of them, tip a little extra, going to lunch, going to dinner. And even one of the things that I've heard too and just seen around is like, be aware at the pumps. There's some people that their cards are going to get declined. They might not have money for gas or food. Like, be aware of a lot of that stuff as you go out and be in the world. So again, we build communities, and we don't just do that through construction and through everything that we talk about here. Be a good person out in the real world. That's super important. So I want to put that in the front of the show, and I'll probably clip this and put it in others, so you'll hear it before this. But just be mindful, guys, of what's going on, and people's pocketbooks are getting hit pretty hard right now. So just be aware of that. And if you can afford it, tip a little extra, give a little more, and just be a good dude. Pure and simple. With that, Matt, what else is going on, man?
Yeah, man, I would echo that sentiment. Things are good for us. We're still growing, we're still building. But I was just saying before we came on here, I was up in Traverse City most of the week, and we were at the resort, the Grand Traverse Resort, which is a pretty fancy high-end place. It's got like 4 or 5 different restaurants, a bunch of bars, and these poor people can't get people to work. So they had like one restaurant open at a time, and nobody shows up. The people that do showed up were getting shit on because they're going to have to work, like 3 shifts straight just to keep up with the demand. We were there for a trade show, which brought in a ton of people. And if you don't have food and bars open, there's not a whole lot up there to do right now this time of year. So, it's shitty to see when people get dumped on in those roles, but we can make a difference. And I would highly encourage you try it.
Yeah. And with that, guys, this week we have Kenny Blakeslee, who brings 20 years of training and experience with multiple aspects of RF3, so radio frequency, which we're going to talk about all sorts of data and FCCs and AHJs, fire officials, contractors, developers, basically everybody within the project to basically bring in-building wireless systems to it. If you've ever dealt with DAS, which is distributed antenna systems, his company, Apex Site Solutions, is really the company to help you do this. Kenny began his career in RF, served in the Navy from 2001 to 2005 as an avionics tech, preparing components from jets on aircraft carrier, which is pretty cool. And thank you for your service, Kenny. And he achieved the rank of Petty Officer Second Class within his 3 years. After service, Kenny worked at various tower companies, which, climbed the ranks from a greenhorn, as we like to say in construction, to a foreman, to RF tester, to project manager, and formed his company in 2010, Apex Site Solutions, and really has been hugely growing his team to over 90 people. He is pretty close to me in Elk Grove, California, which is just south of Sacramento, and got his wife and 2 kids. So with that, Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. And to kind of echo the sentiment from earlier about, doing good for your community, I feel like, as business owners, as people operating in the construction industry, we're the perfect folks to kind of make a difference. We're out there in the community interacting all the time. And what better way than to take care of people in other service industries, right? We're a service industry, take care of other people in the service industry. And it just feels better, right? I mean, that's why I've always hedged on the higher side of tipping. The interactions you get from things like that, when you make somebody's day, when you put a smile on their face because of something like that, and you see real gratitude, that's a great feeling, right? And so what better way to be? Don't be pinching those pennies, trying to get it right down to 15 or 18% or whatever you're doing. Don't deduct that tax.
Absolutely, man. It's a good thing to do. It makes people happy. And it just, that's one of the ways we fight through this shitstorm we're all in right now.
Yeah, exactly. The way the world is right now, right? So we can band together as a community and do better. So let's do it. And that bio, Dillon, is a little bit old, actually. We're a bit over 100 people now, and rapidly growing. We're in an industry that there's just an unbelievable amount of opportunity, unbelievable amount of capital expenditure by all the carriers, by the tower owners, et cetera. So we're kind of riding that wave, and we've had the same problem for the last 3 years, which is we can't hire them fast enough, we can't keep them long enough, we can't develop them fast enough. If I could hire 40 or 50 more people right this moment, we would do it. I mean, that's the kind of industry we're working in right now. So we're pretty blessed there. It's not that I'm any sort of genius, but we're riding a good wave, and trying to take advantage of it. And people is definitely has been the biggest bottleneck. It's also something that we're figuring out over time. We're getting better at, and especially because we've become a very people-focused company, and that's the stuff that makes it fun, and that's the stuff that's going to lead to long-term success for sure.
Yeah, I want to get into labor and people and culture, because I spent some time today kind of bouncing around your different social profiles and your website, and there's a lot of cool stuff you're doing, which we will touch on, hopefully a lot of it. But before we get there, for the idiot, the dumb carpenters in the room like myself, can you give us like a layman's rundown of what exactly RF and RF theory is and what that means to the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, at our core, with Apex Site Solutions, we're a tower construction business. So, we do the beauty of our trade is that all the trades are kind of involved, right? We've got underground work, we've got civils work, we got dirt work, we've got concrete, we erect steel, then we're installing fiber optics and electrical, et cetera. So we kind of do all of it when we're putting those towers up, right? You get all facets of it when we're putting those towers up, and that's where we kind of start. And then but we're also what's making the cell phones work, and that's from radio frequency. So essentially it's some antennas up on a tower that talk to your cell phone, and you get to drive around and talk on the phone and download YouTube and stream everything, right? And so that's what we do. In the last few years, we've transitioned to also making wireless work inside of buildings. That's where you get to the DAS systems that Dillon was referring to earlier, distributed antenna system, which essentially takes buildings where the signal doesn't work and makes it work and distributes it throughout the building evenly. So like I said, with the onset of 5G, even 4G before that, LTE, more and more people with multiple devices, streaming everything on their mobile devices. It's been a good time. They've got to build out more and more bandwidth for everybody to be doing everything that they're doing on these phones these days. So I'll tell you what, the iPhone was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, because as soon as that thing came out, all of a sudden the bandwidth was just through the roof that people were demanding on their phones, and so the carriers had to respond. So they've been spending a lot of money for quite a while now.
That's cool.
Yeah. So RF, I mean, I actually learned it when I was in the Navy. I was an avionics technician, right? And we were working on some of the telemetry and the equipment on the aircraft. Now, I won't say that I took a whole lot of that knowledge over to the other side, because when I got out, I just happened to start climbing towers. My dad had a tower business, and he had just started it when I got out of the Navy in 2005. I was going to go back down to San Diego to go to school. And he said, "Hey, it's summertime. Come work for me for the summer. You can stay with me rent free, climb some towers for me. And you can save up some money. Then you can go back down to San Diego and start school." Well, I never left. And so I was enjoying it. But it was construction, right? And especially because when I first started, I said, I'm not climbing those towers. I was scared of heights. I said, you're out of your mind. I'm not climbing anything. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll swing a pick. I'll dig trenches all day for you. I'll move gravel all you want. I'm not climbing those things. And so I did that for a while, and then pretty soon just got bored. And I said, oh, you know what? All right, hand me one of those harnesses. Let me throw that thing on. I'll climb up there. I climbed up about 20 feet, was shaking, holding on for dear life, scared to death. And, climbed back down pretty quickly, but just kept at it, kept working at it, said, you know what? I want to be good at this. I heard some of the older fellas, the vets, they were telling stories about all these badasses on the tower. And, oh, you remember this guy? You remember all the wild stuff he used to do? And granted, safety is a big deal these days, especially. Back then it was a little different. And so it was just all about it. Hey, watch what I can pull off up in the air, right? And so I heard him telling those stories. I said, damn, I want them telling those stories about me too, right? A little bit of pride got in there. And so I just kept going at it, kept attacking it. And over time, you learn to trust your safety equipment a little bit more, and you get a little bit more comfortable. You get better at it. I was never the best tower hand by any means. There were a lot of guys that were better than me, but I did enough to get the job done, do it well, and then, advance through the ranks from there. So the RF stuff has really come into play as we've started to provide those professional services for in-building systems. That's where that RF knowledge comes in, because we're doing design of the RF systems inside of buildings, et cetera. So that came in a little bit later, but it all does tie together and kind of come full circle, which is nice.
I don't know how you do it, man. I'm not typically afraid of heights. I used to build houses, so I'd walk around on top plates of, 3-story homes. And that was, at the time, I thought I was pretty high off the ground. But I mean, what's a typical tower height? Like, just round numbers.
We're out here in California, so about the tallest we generally get is about 300 feet. A lot of them are anywhere from, 60 to 80. You get a lot of those.
Okay.
130 somewhere. But, once you get above 40 feet or so, it's kind of all the same, right? You get a couple of those 2,000 footers here in California. There's not much. You get a lot more of those in the Midwest. Probably out closer to you, you probably get a lot more of those. But most of ours are fairly short. And over time, as the technologies progressed, and the latency becomes more important. It used to be, let's get the highest tower on the highest mountain we can. Let's cover as much geography as possible with a minimal amount of towers. Now, because of all the bandwidth that they got to put through there, they're really filling them in, and they want to be closer to that device that you're operating on. So that's why a lot of the towers have come down. That's why you're hearing about these things called small cells down in cities. That are just on light poles. They just want as many of these base stations as possible, as close to the device as possible, to really speed things up, decrease latency. And, that's where the vision for 5G is kind of going. So yeah, it's anywhere, but like I said, anything above 40 feet or so, it's kind of all the same, right? If anything, I hate to be kind of dark here, but if you're going to fall, you want to fall from higher, because you don't want to fall from about 40 and end up, a vegetable, right? So
For sure. I get that. I still don't know if I could do it.
I never thought I could. And trust me, if you'd seen the first time I climbed up, you'd have thought I never did it either. Over time, you can get used to just about anything.
Yeah, for sure.
When you guys climb these towers, so I know in like windmills where they've got like the little assist elevators, right, that'll hold like 40 pounds or something to get these guys up to the top of windmills, right? They're going 300 feet, and they can typically only climb it like maybe once, maybe twice a day. What's kind of those things? I know this is like a very detailed, nuanced thing, but in climbing the towers, like, can you guys, do you go up and stay there for the day? How does that like work?
Yeah, quite often that's what'll happen. The guys will oftentimes take a break. It all depends on the height. If you're sitting at 60 to 80 feet, you're definitely going to be more likely to climb down and take your lunch and all that stuff. Other times the guys will take their lunch breaks just kind of hanging out up on the tower. It's up to them. But if you're at about 300 feet or so, it takes a while to climb down. It takes a while to climb up. It's tiring. Now you get on those 2,000 footers. Most of the time those have actual elevators. So you'll climb in, there's an elevator that'll take you to the top and everything, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so in general, what you're usually doing is rigging a rope. So when you first get started, you'll climb up, you'll rig a rope, which is a pulley system. And then that way there's what they call drag bags or buckets that you send up and down. So someone could put your sandwich from your lunchbox into the bag and pull it up to you. And you can just hang out there and eat your food up there, whatever you want to do. So it just all depends on the person. And some people are faster than others. We got some small wiry guys that they can fly up and down that thing. And there's other guys like me that are a little bulkier. And hey, once I'm up there, I'm comfortable. I'm staying up there all day, at least back when I used to climb it. I wasn't quite as heavy as I am now, but still, I was always a little bulkier. So it just all depends on the individual, the scenario, et cetera. Now, we work rain or shine. The only thing that'll take us off the tower is lightning. So there are the days where you're up there in your rain gear and you're darn sure climbing down to take your lunch break because you got to get out of that cold and that wet, and it just drives you crazy. Which is one of the reasons when we talk about people that we do, retention is difficult because it is very specialized. It's very tough. I'm sure we can dive into a little bit later in terms of the ways that we get people to stay. But yeah, it's not an easy industry by any means. It's not for everybody.
So normally we kind of talk about more stuff, but this is fascinating to me. So I'm going to stay here for a minute. Speaking on the dark side of this, so I spent some time as a firefighter for a very short time. We didn't do any sort of tower climbs, but do you I have to assume you guys have to have some very specialized safety training or tower rescue type training. I mean, if you're up that high and all hell breaks loose, how does that work?
Yeah. So the safety in our industry has definitely improved by leaps and bounds since I first joined in 2005 and even before that. Right. So at least when I first started, I was in a full body harness that you could attach to a safety climb on the tower. So even when I first started, you were always tied off. Before that, it wasn't the case. So first off, climbing, it's 100% tie off. You should never be climbing up in the air when you can't at all times be attached back to that steel, back to something that's permanent. They've got what they call safety climbs these days, where you hook a device that's mounted to your chest, and as you're climbing, it's attached to a wire. So if you were to slip while you were climbing, it'll catch you. So it'll slide up that wire smooth. As soon as it feels a jerk going down, it'll stop and it'll catch you. When you're up there and you're moving around, you've got Y lanyards that are attached to your back that kind of have some shock absorbers in them. So once you get into place, you'll tie off with a rope that's your positioning lanyard. That'll hold you, but you'll always have that Y lanyard attached back to something. So even when you're moving around, if you were to slip, you'll fall, it'll catch you. There should be never any risk, as long as you're doing this correctly, of actually going all the way to the ground. So that the safety has been improved a great deal. Now, with that said, somebody were to slip like that and their shock absorbers, maybe they hit their head on the way down, you would definitely have to go into a rescue protocol. So all of our folks that are on site before they ever climb, they're all not just certified in tower climbing safety, they're also certified in rescue. So they've always got bags at the bottom of the tower that are ready to deploy in an instant. They'll climb them up, and what it is so you can attach to somebody that's dangling on the tower, detach them from their lines, and then you will essentially do a controlled descent down the tower. You'll guide them down the tower along those ropes to get them to the ground and get first aid or whatever else is in place. So now, when you talk about firefighters, there's been times where crews weren't trained properly at rescue. So you got somebody dangling from the tower, and they have to bring out fire rescue folks. And I don't even know how they get them down most of the time, unless they got a ladder truck that's tall enough, because I don't know how well versed they are in climbing a tower and rescuing somebody from there. But I've seen that happen, and it's sad, and it should never happen, because the folks on site should be plenty prepared for an emergency. Matter of fact, little story for you, we just had another class go through about 2 weeks ago, doing their rescue certification. And by the way, the guys get recertified every year as well. So because if you don't use it, you lose it, obviously, and they're not doing it very often. So they got to be able to do it quickly. But during that, we actually had a guy who was attached correctly, got into a position and forgot to tie himself off when he was there, got into the wrong position, and actually essentially fell, if you will, right? Now, granted, his safety equipment caught him the way it was supposed to, but then we had to do an actual rescue during the rescue certification, which I was like, man, we gotta actually stage that more often. That was probably the best way for them to learn. I think they all went into full panic mode for a second. They had to calm down, get control of themselves and go into action. That's probably the best case scenario. We need to stage those every single time, but that was a first for us. So,
Wow. Yeah, I mean, learn through experience. I guess that's the best way to do it.
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's I'm sure you guys did this with the firefighting, right? You can be the best trained until it's the heat of the moment and the panic sets in. All of a sudden, your mind goes out the window. So you gotta train something not till you get it right, but till you can't get it wrong. And so, I don't know that we necessarily do it to that point, but we go as hard as we can to get these guys so they're prepared and it's always in their heads. And we talk, our first core value is safety obsessed, because returning home safely is priority number one. And especially in an industry like we're in, where it could potentially be dangerous, but if you always do things perfectly, if you always do things right, there should be no accidents. So yeah, if you hammer it home enough, you keep it top of mind, tip of tongue, knock on wood, we've had a good track record. We've never had any real incidents. So we want to keep that going, obviously, because that's, as a company owner, they say, what keeps you up at night? That's one of those ones, you feel like you did everything right and something still happened. That would be terrible. I don't ever want to have to live through that. I don't want any of my people that ever have to live through it, their families, anything like that. Right. So that's one of those things.
No, I get that for sure. And that's probably a good segue and to start talking about, your people and your labor. When you're bringing new people on, do you bring on many greenhorns? Like, I got to imagine like the mindset that you were just talking about, right? That unshakable mindset where you got to be able to switch off the chaos immediately to act or react to something going wrong. How do you teach that to somebody who's never done it? Like, or do you typically bring on guys that have some time on the tower and go from there?
No, we actually usually avoid that, to be honest with you. We like to bring people in with no experience for a couple different reasons. I think early on it was because the industry lends itself to people that kind of jump for a buck in a truck. So they're kind of jumping around all over the place. As soon as they come in, they're going to be looking for greener pastures. And I think, people that have that mindset generally always have that mindset, and they don't realize the grass is greener where you water it. It's not greener on the other side, right? So we've always kind of avoided it, but especially over the last 5 years or so, where my mindset has shifted thanks to a lot of mentorship. But we're really all about our mission is to transform lives by providing growth and development opportunities that empower our people. So our company missions, because it's the same for both Apex and Pulse, with Pulse being the in-building company, it's completely people focused. It's not about towers, it's not about 5G, it's not about RF, it's not about any of that, but it's all about people and transforming their lives, giving them a career they never thought possible. And so that's one of the big reasons that we like to bring people in with no experience, and we like to train them up, and we like to give them the hard skills of, hey, here's how you build a tower, here's how you hang an antenna, here's how you make it work. But then we also like to talk to them a lot about mindset stuff, and we like to get in their heads and coach them up. We like to get in their personal goals and help them achieve their personal goals. And really that's what we're all about. And that's why, for the most part, our focus is bringing people in. And as rapidly as we're growing, and as much as our vision is to go nationwide, our vision is to grow this thing big. It's not for the sake of just opening offices and having a big company. It's because, well, shoot, we don't have a whole lot of people retiring. Our demographic is generally a little bit younger. We don't have really anybody quitting once they're here for a certain period of time. So the only way we can create the opportunity for people to build a big career and not kind of grow out of here or be able to advance is to grow wider, right? They can't climb the ladder up. They got to be able to climb it to the side. They got to climb it wider. So that's definitely what we're trying to do, what we're all about. So that really lends itself to the fact now that what we're looking for most of the time is people coming in with little to no experience that we can mold and really set off on a path that they never thought possible.
That's really cool. That's not at all what I would have expected, but I get it, and you probably have a bunch of, when you're in the industry, especially something like construction, you get the guys that have been here for too long and they've got all the shitty bad habits. It's real hard to unlearn those. So I guess to your point, bringing in somebody completely green and blank slate, you can teach them those habits before they get the wrong ones.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to mold them. And to be honest with you, just the type of industry that have been in the past, I'm pretty proud of the way that I think we're kind of setting the tone for our industry. But, when we talk about, we bring in somebody in and we interview them, and we'll talk to people that have experience, right? If they're coming in, but the whole thing will be based around, listen, here's our core values, here's our mission, this is what we stand for. Do you want to be a part of that? Are you just looking for a new home? And some of them get it and some of them don't, but I think they're all shocked in general. They're like, wait, what are you talking about? Core values? That's just some stuff on a website, right? And they're like, no, this is how we do everything we do, right? So you tell me how you feel about these core values. Let me ask you some theoretical questions, right? And let's find out if you really can embody these core values. And if you can't, then I don't care how much experience you have. I don't care what kind of badass you are at building sites or whatever else. You're just not going to fit in here. It's not going to work long term. So let's not do that. And so it's easier to kind of find people that fit or get people to embrace those core values when they're brought in younger, more moldable. Actually, I shouldn't say younger, but with a fresher set of eyes, right? So they're not so focused on, I know how to build a tower. It's like, no. I need you to know how to operate. I need you to know how to think. I need you to know how to conduct yourself. Then we can figure out how to build a tower, right?
And in that, like in bringing them in that way, right? Core values first, mindset first. How has that helped your really retention of people versus, like you were talking about job hoppers and, a lot of that I find just in construction is not giving people those opportunities, right? Not leading through example, be a place where it's really just a paycheck, that buck in the truck that you were talking about. So how has having the ability to grow to that you're leading through core values and mindset and really having a teaching mentality versus do this, do that mentality, how has that helped your retention?
I'd say it's helped immensely. It helps retention, but it also helps to weed out the ones that don't belong, right? So the ones that you don't want. So it increases the retention that you do want. But it's been everything. And I'm not going to say that I was always like this or that we always had a good culture. I'm extremely proud of the culture that we have now. I'd say it's one of our differentiators for sure. It wasn't always that way. I started off when I first opened this company, I had no intention of growing into a big organization. I'd never worked for a big organization. I had worked for my dad's company. Then we had butted heads at that point. He was younger. I was younger. So we butted heads. I left. I went to work for 2 other companies and advanced a project manager, but they were small companies as well. And so I started my own thing just as an opportunity. I saw essentially what I was working as a project manager, but they were making me sub out all the work. We didn't have any internal crews. And there were no good subs that I could find. And the ones that were trying to kind of force down my throat were embarrassing, right? I'm like, I'm not putting my name on the work these guys are doing. So I finally said, hey, listen, how about I go get my contractor's license? I'll go build some sites. You sub them to me, at least then, you're getting, one crew worth of sites that are going to be done well. You're going to be able to trust me not to embarrass you. I'm going to close the site out at the end correctly. And so that's how I ended up doing it. It was just me and a couple of guys and my wife helping in the background. And I actually came to her when she was 8 months pregnant and said, hey, I want to leave this steady gig and start our own thing. And luckily she was supportive of that and it worked out. But those first few years were grinding. It was just me and a couple of guys. And we slowly grew it. We hired a couple more, got more opportunity, hired a couple more. All of a sudden I look up, we got about 20 people. I'm still trying to do almost everything myself. My wife was helping with, some accounting stuff, some payroll stuff, but the rest of it, project management, bidding, closeout packages. Cause in our industry, the closeout packages are pretty intense. Scheduling, hiring, firing, all of it was on me. Everybody else was out in the field and I was getting burnt out and I was an asshole. I'm just going to call a spade, right? I became a fairly miserable person. I was, pulling 72 hours straight, working between building a site, then having to go test a cutover at night, then having to do a closeout package the next day, then go back to do another cutover. I mean, it was crazy. And so I wasn't a good leader. I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to run an organization by any means. And then it was around 2014, 2015 that I started to get some mentorship and I started to realize a few things, and it was a slow change, but it really started to click for me around 2017. And that's when I started saying, what got us here? Because at that point we were probably around 35 people. I said, what got us here isn't going to get us to that next level by any means. I'm chewing people up and spitting them out because guess what? Our customers love us because we got great quality. We deliver on time, but I'm driving everybody internally way too hard. I'm not fun to work for. This is not a good place to work. And so I started to work on those things. And so culture started to slowly change. I think the first thing that came was our mission. which be just based on, we didn't document it exactly, but it became about people. And that came from the mentorship of a guy who was in the industry, and we would go to breakfast once a month or so. And he said to me one morning, he said, I mean, you understand what you're doing for these guys, right? Like a lot of these guys, not that they're losers, but they didn't know what they were gonna do for their future. They were looking for a job. They didn't have a whole lot of hope of building a family, of being stable, of being able to retire someday with a retirement plan and everything else. And you're giving them a career that allows them to do that stuff. They've got benefits. They've got a retirement plan. They can now build a family and feel stable in doing so. And so that all, it clicked. It's, oh, wow. Then that's where we started to get people focused, right? And so that kind of started with that mission there, which we didn't actually put words to until later, but we started to behave that way. And then it was, it's only over the last few years that we've really started to utilize those core values. So we started to build a better culture, became more people focused. Now in the last couple of years, when we've documented, hey, here's our core values. We put a lot of effort in those core values. Here's our actual mission. Here's how we're going to say this. And here's how we're going to explain it. Here's our vision for what we're doing for the future. And once we start to articulate all those things, that vision, it's big enough so that everybody in this company understands that they can build a future and a career, and they can build beyond their wildest dreams. And it can all take place within inside this company, because our vision for growth is big enough that their vision for growth can fit inside of there, right? The mission being people focused, the core values to tell people, hey, listen, this is how we expect you to behave. This is how we hold ourselves to behave. This is how we expect you to behave. And that really started to make all the difference. And it's helped retention a ton. It's helped self-selection a lot, where if guys aren't going to fit in, because we interviewed this stuff, right? If they're not going to fit in, a lot of them are, hey, I'm not the right one for this job. And so it has helped retention, and without a doubt, the vision thing and everybody understanding that, look, we're trying to help you build something big. You can build a big career here. We've got guys that are 20, 21 years old making six figures, and are really setting themselves up to get into an office job if that's what they want within 5 or 6 years in the industry. I mean, it's like I said earlier, it's a tough industry. It's a grind. It's not easy, but the light at the end of the tunnel is not very far off. You can advance quickly. You can build a big career pretty quickly, and the staying power looks good, at least as of right now. Right. So that all painting that picture for them has helped retention quite a bit. And I think our industry being tough, the state of the job market right now, what they, when they say millennials or whatever right now, all that has been kind of tough, but I think we've started to solve that puzzle by communicating more, by communicating vision, by casting the vision to the team, getting them excited about it, giving them a mission and values that they can get behind, and we're creating our tribe of people that are very protective of the company themselves. And it's a good thing, which actually sometimes backfires, but I guess we can get into that later, maybe. Asking for referrals is tough when they're super protective of the culture. They're like, I'm not referring anybody in, man. I'm not sure if they're Apex material. Like, let us be the judge of that.
Well, I really want to hit on something. I mean, a lot of that is Matt and I completely agree with, but is the big thing, and I'm putting words in your mouth, Matt, but is giving people careers, like where that guy was saying that, these guys are just looking for a job, and it turned into so much more. And I really feel that most of construction is that way, that maybe in the beginning for most guys, they're like, oh, man, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not, a computer guy. I'm not a guy to go and do the whole college thing. I don't think that I'm cut out for, this, that, or the other thing, but they feel good, one, about being outside, two, about being in construction. They like building things. They like doing stuff with their hands. And that's not the only, route to take, but that's a big part of construction, right? It's the actual building of things. And we talk about it a lot, but is to show people like what you're doing, right? Like you're empowering data and connectivity and everything around that in, lots of places, right? Not just in cities, but in rural America. Like it's a lot of places to do connectivity. And that's a big deal, in today's world. But it's not only that, it's giving them, the ability to move up in careers, and you can do it quickly, a few years, here's the path, like, the trajectory. And not many companies, one, do that, but two, you, within all of construction, you have that ability to move pretty quickly if you show aptitude, work ethic, you don't piss off clients, right? Like there's all those things that go into it to where this is a great industry in basically every aspect, whether you're on the design side, whether you're a GC, whether you're a sub, whether you're doing development, you can move very quickly if you choose to. And I just think I want to really hammer this home, because we do give a lot of people in a lot of areas careers, opportunities, in the office, out of the office, building infrastructure packages, making people's lives easier. Like, think of the millions of people that you touch with the impacts that you make in building data towers and cell towers. It's millions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I go and speak to high schools at trades days here locally in Northern California pretty often. And the biggest message I try to get across, right, because it's technically supposed to be about recruiting for us and trying to get people to join the team. But my message over and over again is like, listen, the biggest thing is at your age, especially, you got to start with, what do you want your future to look like? And don't let me tell you what it should look like. Don't let your high school counselor tell you what it should look like. You got to build a picture for what you want it to look like and then go chase it, because there's so much possibility. So, hey, for those students, when they're there, it's like, yeah, you're going to see a whole bunch of trades. You're going to see us climbing towers. You're going to see the carpenters union. By the way, we're non-union. There's not a lot of unions in our industry, but guess what? The unions are over there with the carpenters and everything else. And they're all great options. You got to determine what looks good to you. And by the way, maybe it is college, but just don't go into it because you've been told if you don't go to college, you'll be a loser, because that's bullshit. And stop letting people tell you that. So don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody else here. Figure out what sounds fun to you and then go chase that shit, So that's definitely true. And for some people, guess what? This isn't going to be the trade for them. They're not going to want to work outdoors. They're not going to want to tough it out. And they're going to find something better. And by all means, go chase that too, right? Like, everybody is so different, but there's a lot of people that can thrive doing construction work who would just be miserable forcing their way through college, but they've been told this story that if they don't go, they're a loser, and the trades or anything else is plan B. And that's just not true. They're going deep into debt going to college, while my guys are making six figures at 21 years old, already with a savings, probably already bought a house while they're coming out trying to find a $50,000 a year job with $100,000 in debt, right? Which, listen, I'm not knocking that either. I'm just telling you, this is a pretty damn good option. And the long-term viability of it is there too. Because like I said, the knock used to be, oh, the trades are hard on the body. You're going to be working in the field for 25, 30 years. You're going to be destroyed by the time you retire. There's just so much opportunity for advancement these days. It's just not true. You don't have to. If you want to be in the field, you can be in the field long-term. But if you don't, there's plenty of opportunities to advance to something that isn't a grind on the body all the time. So that story's tired.
It is. You're absolutely right. And we preach that, almost every show. And I do the same thing. I go and I talk with high school groups. I talk with my own high schooler, and we have those same conversations that construction is one of the few industries that goes nowhere, right? No matter how good we build our shit, whether it's houses, buildings, towers, design, it doesn't matter. There's a lifespan to it, right? You can't build something that will literally last forever. So construction goes nowhere. And there is so much room for growth. And I think between the three of us on this call here, on this show, we represent very different aspects of the industry, right? And probably very different paths that we took to get here. But at the end of the day, we're all doing well. We're all feeding mouths. We're all putting food on our people's table. And that's really the name of the game here. You said it, and I don't want to keep repeating it, but the litany of different options in this industry that you could choose to focus on is almost unendable, right? It's just, there's so much out there, and I love seeing it. I love seeing what you're doing with your culture. Like I said, I poked around on your sites, and you got a lot of motivational notes of 1% better every day, and I'm watching videos of your Monday celebrations, and stuff like that is awesome, and it's cool to see. But it's even cooler to recognize like what that is doing to the industry, not just your folks, right? They obviously love it, but other people are now watching you. Other tower companies, I'm sure, are spying on Apex Site Solutions and saying, well, what the hell is he doing? Why are these guys having so much fun and nobody's fucking leaving? He's doing it right. And if we all keep doing that, and enough of us keep doing it, then the industry starts getting better and better and better. And that's how we kick that old bullshit mentality out, that if you don't go get your degree, then you're not going to amount to anything.
Yeah. And when it comes to those Monday morning celebrations, think I was listening to, I think it was Ed Milet. I think it was his podcast, and it was Dabo Sweeney. I think that's who it was. Maybe it was John Gordon, but they were talking about, look, you drive accountability, but you got to bounce out with love and with celebration, right? And so that's what we try to do, because we've always been good at driving accountability. And hey, we can be taskmasters all day, and we can demand the highest quality, the highest behavior standards, et cetera. But damn it, when we get it out of these people, when we get out of these guys and gals, let's celebrate that too, right? And especially, we make them set goals, and we make them set big goals, and we have big goals. And if we're just going to celebrate once we get to that goal, we're doing it wrong. So we got to be celebrating along the way. We got to have milestones. We got to have the little things that we're celebrating, and that's what can make it fun. And it also builds a ton of camaraderie in there. These guys are in there celebrating. When we first came up with the idea for these celebrations on Monday morning, we kind of utilized the college football helmet sticker idea. And I couldn't be prouder, because when we were first kicking around the idea, we said, wait, all right, so we're going to give these guys a sticker and say, good job for doing this. It could go one of two ways. You go, great, or they can go, what's this sticker? Yeah. Save your sticker and give me some money. You know what I mean? What is this bullshit? I'm not a child. And so, we weren't quite sure. And so there are these stickers they could put on their hard hats and climbing helmets. And it's gone over gangbusters, especially because it's not from us, it's from their peers, right? And so when you get the peers celebrating each other, mentoring each other, rooting each other on, that's when it becomes powerful. So I can sit up there all day and say, hey, good job to Daniel, good job to Bill. But it's when they're doing it to each other that it becomes powerful, and they get excited and they're rooting each other on. And it's been a big contributor to the culture we've got going right now, for sure.
That's awesome, man. I love it.
Kenny, where can they find you?
Where can they find me? I think on Instagram, I'm Kenny Blakeslee. I guess on everything, I'm Kenny Blakeslee. There's also www.apexsitesolutions.com. I don't have any personal websites or anything. I'm not that well branded at this point. Maybe in the future, I'll take some lessons from you guys. But yeah, for now, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Kenny Blakeslee. Yeah, that's about it.
Guys, all the links will be in the show notes below. Kenny, one of our last questions that we try to ask every guest is problem solution, right? What do you see in the industry as a problem? And it might be the hiring piece that you've already hit on. And then how do we go about solving it? We want to bring solutions to the table here and what we can do to help the industry, and maybe it's outside of construction, but kind of what do you see as a big problem, and what can we do to help solve it?
You know what? I think we did hit on some of the ones from our industry and the construction. There's a lot of them, but I think just because of the state of the world right now, and I actually was thinking about this recently, I did a little post about, normalize disagreements as parents, not fights, but everybody says present a united front as parents. And I actually disagree. My wife and I come from much different backgrounds. And so we don't always see eye to eye on the way something should be handled, right? When my son gets into something, I'm like, you punch him in his teeth? And my wife said, stop that, And so, but we got to normalize that. There's right now these days with COVID, with the left versus right, everything going on, it's like people can't disagree anymore. It's like people think they can't disagree and be friends. And that's ridiculous. And so to me, I think, and I wish I had a solution actually. So maybe I shouldn't have brought this up. I don't have a solution, but everybody needs to get back to the fact that we don't have to agree on everything. I don't care if you are, say you're right wing, but you don't like guns. Well, hey, guess what? That doesn't make you not right wing. It doesn't make you not Republican, whatever the hell it is. Well, that's another point altogether. Let's get rid of the two-party system. But the bottom line is, no matter who we are, we don't have to pick sides and pick a team. We can disagree on some things and agree on others. And that's all well and good. Stop it with the picking sides and then drawing the lines in the sand. And anybody that's on the other side of the line is an enemy. That's bullshit. We got a lot more in common than we have different. Let's focus on that and just embrace that stuff. And hey, have some spirited debates, but it doesn't have to turn into fights where you hate somebody. That's kind of, let's get over that shit.
Man, I think you just nailed the solution right there. That's it. Rip the fucking Band-Aid off and have conversations, disagree, get in debates, get in arguments, but shake hands and grab a beer when you're done with it. And, it's got to go back to playground rules, right? When you piss somebody off, you get punched in the teeth, you get thrown off the monkey bars, but you're buds at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You get past it. It's not these long lasting, spiffs or whatever you want to call it. It's just, we got to get past that shit. So I love that answer.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time too, man. Communication. When communications flows, then relationships grow. So, you know, the more that we can communicate and be open with that communication, honest, then everybody be a lot better off.
Dude, I love that. I gotta write that down. Communication flows, relationships grow. That's awesome.
Let's go, man.
So just to, you know, add to that is, so Chad Wright here recently has made a lot of really great posts. If you're not following him too, I'll give a shout out to Chad. His thing when he graduated Buds was don't be a pussy. That was his words of advice. And that's, you know, no blood, no foul, right? Like, it's some of those where, hey, at the end of the day, like, you know, it's only words, right? But communicating, saying what you feel goes a long way, you know, and then people can hear where you're coming from. You can hear where they're coming from. And that's the other thing. Listen, right? Understand where people are coming from to try to find some common ground to where you can then move forward. And I think we'll all be better off for it. And again, we try to bring that here every week for you guys, is just different backgrounds, different places, making the trades cool again, you know, making construction a good industry to work and live in. And not everything needs to be a, you know, knockdown, drag out fight either. But we can, you know, find a way to move forward together through a lot of our projects, you know. And at the end of the day, we talk about this a lot too, is that, you know, our projects, we're in this together. Nobody's gonna, I mean, there are winners and losers within a project, but at the same time, like, we're in to build a great project, a great thing for our communities. And that, at the end of the day, is what we should be looking for and looking forward to, is to make that project great. You know, more than likely you live in the communities that you're building in. So, you know, make that a place that you're proud of. And at the end of the day, proud to say that you had a part in building it and creating whatever it is, from towers to schools to hospitals to rec centers to whatever it is. You know, be proud of what you're building, and make sure that, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of us can win and win easily. Communication is probably the biggest part of it, and it's the thing that causes more delays than about anything else on the job site too.
Yeah.
With that, Matt, any last words?
I think we touched on it, man. Kenny, I just, you know, this has been one of the best conversations I think we've had in a long time. I could keep going for another hour, but I just appreciate you coming on, man, and keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing it well.
Right on. I appreciate it. I enjoyed this as well. Time flew by.
Yeah.
Any other last words, Kenny, for our audience?
I've got nothing, man. I'm not that smart. Hey, 1% better every day. How about that?
There you go.
That's a great one. And guys, so with that, we covered a lot of ground today. We covered culture, core values, communication, you know, the like core things that we hit on this show every time. Growing your people, you know, giving them careers, a path to go to, that construction's a great place to be, and that doing right by your people is a great way to grow an organization, great way to grow a company, and a great way to make a great community. So again, 100 people, you know, it's a small town in a lot of places, right? Like, that's a lot of people to be responsible for, a lot of families to feed, a lot of mouths to feed. So Kenny, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being a great example of what, you know, construction can be, and in you know, not the easiest of environments to work in, right? Outside, rain or shine, and climbing towers, you know, not the thing that you hear about every day, but it again powers our world. And we appreciate you for doing that, and for providing so many jobs and opportunities for so many people. So with that, guys, go ahead and share the show, get it out to more people. We need more people to talk about construction, that you have other opportunities than going to college or working behind a desk doing some unmeaningful job that you just got thrown into. You know, there's a lot of meaning behind construction, and we want to pass that message along. So go ahead, share the show, and thank you all for listening. That is this episode of Construction Corner Podcast. Until next time.